Welcome to the 8th interview in our series recognizing former women's athletes, coaches, and administrators from CCIW institutions. My name is Mike Krizman, and I serve as the CCIW's Assistant Executive Director. This series is part of the CCIW's 75th anniversary celebration, and we continue with former North Central student athlete, Nancy Kranpitz. Nancy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's fun. It's going to be fun to be here.
Absolutely. A 1967 North Central graduate, Kranpitz was the first woman at North Central College to participate in a conference championship in a men's varsity sport. She participated on the men's swimming team for 3 years under 6-time CCIW champion coach John Molitor. She also competed in other meets, including the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women National Championships. She earned her degree in physical education and immediately after graduation taught at the junior high level. She also had teaching stints in Athens, Greece community schools, as well as 2 years at La Crosse Central. So Nancy, I guess I want to start out with my first interview question, and that is, what made you decide on North Central as the place you wanted to earn your collegiate education?
Well, when I was looking at colleges, I knew I didn't want to go to a big university. I wanted a smaller school, far enough away from home that I wouldn't be tempted to come home all the time, but if I had to get home, it would be okay. I also knew when I went to college that I wanted to be a physical education teacher. So it was important to find a school that offered that degree. And of course, there's several in Wisconsin. They were called state teachers colleges back then. They're now University of Wisconsin at. And my high school history teacher routinely sent in the names of honor roll students to North Central, as he was an alumni. And I started getting information about North Central, and I kind of liked what I heard and went down and visited. And it was a dreary, rainy, cold, damp November day. And I thought, if I can like this campus on a day like that, it's probably a good place for me. So that's how I ended up there.
So how did you come about competing on the men's swimming team? I know that was something, as I've read about your story, that's not something that really occurred back in the mid 60s. How did that come about?
Well, I originally just talked with the coach on my visit and just wanted to know if there was going to be an opportunity to swim. I didn't get an opportunity to swim even somewhat year round until I was in 8th grade. And so I wasn't burned out like kids today often are by the time they graduate from high school. And I just wanted to keep swimming. And he said, well, yeah, but the pool's available. You can bring somebody down and swim, when you want to, when the pool's available. And then that was before school started. And we had our freshman retreat in early September of 63, and sat down and had lunch with him, and he said, oh yes, you're the girl swimmer, I'm going to have you swim with the men. And it was like, wow, I don't know where it came from. I was trying to get a hold of him this week to find out some of his thinking from back then, but I haven't been able to connect with him. So that's how it came about. And I had asked him once, what did you say to those guys? Because this was something new and different, very new and different. And he just said, well, I told them to be gentlemen. I expect you to be gentlemen. And they were. It was a wonderful experience.
That's great to hear. So you competed in the NAIA Women's National Championships. What do you remember most about that experience?
Well, I went to 3 of those. And this just shows you how far off the radar women's sports was back in the 60s, early 60s. My mother drove down from central Wisconsin, picked me up at North Central, and we drove over to Ann Arbor where the first meet was held. And unfortunately, I don't remember a whole lot about these things. You figure this was almost 60 years ago, 55 years ago. And I did not, this is one thing I regret. I did not put that in my memory bank. I think you should really remember this. I do remember I swam the 100 free and I had a pretty good time. The second year, I do have one very outstanding memory of that. One of the faculty members at the college and I took the train to Kent State University. And this was in the era of the old sweep clock stopwatches. I'm sure many people today have no idea what those are, but it was a 30-second sweep stopwatch. And I swam the 200 free, and the timers misread my time in the preliminaries way to my advantage. Instead of recording it as a 2-minute and 29-second swim. They recorded it as a 1-minute and 59-second swim.
Wow.
And that back in 1964, that would have been a fantastic time. Today it's very mediocre. But anyway, I went to the official and I said, that's incorrect. I did not do that. I don't deserve to be in lane 3. This other lady deserves to be in lane 3 for the finals. And they said, well, we have to go by what was, presented to us. So I ended up swimming in lane 3 next to a former Olympian,
Wow.
Jimmy Dunkel, who creamed me, of course. But the nice thing about that is, after the race, we just shook hands. I said, I'm sorry, you should have been in this lane. And she said, no problem. And it was good. But that was one of the more memorable things that I have from that meet.
Mm-hmm. Great. So reflecting back on your experience swimming on the North Central men's team, do you ever think about how rare that was at the time and the odds that you overcame?
Now I do, but when I was doing it, it was, I did not put in my memory bank, this is really something unique. I felt it when they had the conference meet and a reporter from the Chicago Tribune came out and did a story, and it was like, every time I turned around, somebody was snapping a picture of me. And I thought, no, but I think in the long run, I didn't think it was all that unusual, because when you think back to the 60s, there were no girls' sports in high school, none at all. I happened to swim on an AAU team, which made me stick out kind of like a sore thumb, because I was the only female in my whole high school class. There were some other girls in other classes that were also on the same team that were a part of something like this. So that was new and different. So when I came to North Central and I still was able to swim, yeah, it was new and different, but it wasn't such a change in the way I had been approached with the other swimming.
So how did your intercollegiate experience help shape the person that you became?
Well, I mean, as far as the swimming and all that?
Well, just maybe just as a parent, as a teacher, how did that experience swimming for North Central College? How did that shape your time as an adult?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into that question, and several things that happened outside of the college experience too. Like my father once told me, swimming has given a lot to you. Make sure you give back. Okay. Also, there's a gentleman at North Central that you probably have heard of named Al Carius.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Al came, I think, my senior year, and his mantra was run for fun and personal best. So I kind of tried to adopt that into my coaching, and also like into my life, because, if you approach life too seriously, it's not fun. So I wanted to try to approach things and deal with things on a positive note as much as possible, and make it fun and enjoy it. So like in all my years of coaching, I never cut a kid from a team, never, ever. I always tried to make it fun for them, but also, make it so that they could develop not only as a swimmer, but as a person. So that, I think, is probably, based on good old Al Carius, run for fun and personal best. You can just expand that into so many different areas. Now, both of my daughters went to North Central, both competed, the older one on the volleyball team for 4 years, younger one swimming 1 year and tennis 1 year. And they still, out of the clear blue, will say, remember, run for fun and personal best. So that's stuck around for a long time.
Well, I just wanted to ask one more question. Do you ever see how much women's athletics has evolved today, and just kind of say, wow, that's it's come a long way? How did we do that? Have you ever stepped back and kind of looked at it that way?
Oh, yes, many times, especially when I got the Cleo Tanner Award, because when you think of it, anybody age 65 and younger cannot really comprehend life without girls and women in sports these days, because that came about in 1971. I was teaching at La Crosse Central in 1971. And there was good and bad, because being the Phi Ed teacher, of course, they expected me to coach. So, and also run the intramurals. So intramurals Tuesday, Thursday after school, followed by either tennis or gymnastics. It got difficult because spring came around and, well, we need a track coach. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm burned out. And but if you can't coach it, well, we can't have a team. And I said, I'm sorry, do any of the men coach 3 sports? So it was a good thing to have it coming in, but we didn't have enough women able to coach and with qualifications to coach. So that was tough. And even with Miss Tanner, I have to relate this story because it really is kind of cute. She was a big promoter of sports for women at North Central. And I remember one day playing tennis with a young man, and this was in the old Merner field house, true field house, mud floor. She happened to walk by and was watching, and I must have scored some points or something, but she called me over and she said, now Nancy, you do know who should win. And it was like, even somebody who's trying to promote girls and women in sports, there was still this thing about, well, you should promote it, but girls, you just can't do it that well. You shouldn't do it that well that you beat a guy. So that, of course, has really changed. And of course, Billie Jean King and was it Bobby Riggs? That tennis match was one of those. So yeah, things have really changed. And also when I coached swimming and Marinette in the 90s at the high school, it was a new sport. And I was, as coach, expected to find our swim meet schedule, set up our swim meet schedule. The athletic director did it for all the other teams, but the girls and women's for sports were just kind of coming. And if they weren't in a conference thing, then it was up to the coach to do it. So those things have all changed. So that's all good. The only downside I see is that with the development of all the club teams, that young ladies are getting too involved in just one sport. I love seeing, like up in northern Wisconsin, these small schools where the girls and the boys are 3-sport athletes. So if they aren't, then they don't have the sport because there's not enough kids to go around. So yeah, there's good and bad that have come out of it. But I think for the most part, it's been very good. And it's been fun to watch it grow.
Sorry, my kids are home from school, so they're both at the door. In this day and age of COVID, we're stuck at home, stuck working from home, and so dealing with work-life balances. But that's why I had my thing on mute here just now. But Nancy, I just want to say thank you for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate you being here with us and talking about your experiences, and wish you all the best going forward. And thank you again.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about not only girls and women's sports, but North Central, because it has quite a soft spot in my heart for that place.